in the afternoon.
Hey, afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here we are, Rob. Welcome to another new media show recording. How are you?
I'm doing great, Todd. This is a very interesting time that we're all going through in the world today.
Well, I think so, and it's this WhatsApp group that we're both in. No, podcasting has not given up video.
Well, that is so ironic that we're having that conversation in that way, because it's like it's obvious that video has always had a role in podcasting. It's just we're just struggling over, I guess, its prominence, I guess, at this point.
As I said to someone, as I made a comment, I'm like, it's not my fault.
That's right.
We've supported video from nearly the beginning, and it's like it's the app's fault.
Yeah. Well, it's the industry itself. We've been kind of disjointed about this whole thing of video, haven't we? And we've left the door wide open for these big proprietary platforms to dictate what's going to go on.
Yeah.
But Todd, I wanted to really talk about today too, and after I mention this, go ahead and say what you were going to say. But I'm increasingly getting the impression, and are you, that podcasting and online media is the media now? With the announcement of Comcast casting aside, the big cable channel MSNBC for declining audience, and we're seeing such a huge audience around podcasting now that dwarfs anything on cable television, that I think podcasting has become mainstream media now.
Well, I still want to call it the new media.
I know. No, I do too. I was going to ask you about that too. Is when do we drop the new part?
Well, I said maybe we are the media, as the show title implies.
Yeah.
Before we
get to change the name to it to "We Are the Media."
Yeah. Before we get into that, last week I talked about a podcaster with us that had a challenge with their Apple listing.
Yeah.
And I sent that information over to Ted, and he did a detailed analysis of what was going on. And it turns out that show had up to 3 Apple podcast listings, of which the one that the podcaster is using is the original one. So, because there was a moving of host, and so long story short,
that can easily go sideways if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
Right?
So long story short, it appears that it was operator error.
Mm-hmm.
And although there was a number of listeners that there was a show that was archived, and it was archived by the host that had subscribers on it. So 2 of those listings did have subscribers, and one that they archived basically probably should not have been archived, and there should have been some plan to have migrated them to the correct listing. But anyway, just so, because I saw someone in a chat say, "Oh, Apple's dropping listings." No, this was not the case. So
I think I heard someone mention something about this shift over to AI doing kind of content moderation, as well as cleaning up the catalog based on a certain
definitely
criteria.
in Spotify for sure. That's
Yeah.
happening.
I think you're right, Todd. That comment came about Spotify, not about Apple. Right.
And and we're getting, and if you're from Spotify, please listen to this.
Yeah.
They are just, they're pitting our customers against us, because we're having shows that are playing music in their episodes, churches, a variety of different shows, and of course the episodes, and sometimes the entire show is getting pulled. And then they go and ask Spotify why, and they said, well, you have to get licensing with your podcast host. And yet they don't tell them that they're not allowing everything but why
Yeah.
they were removed,
Yeah, it's not a disclosure.
not a
Yeah.
disclosure, and they're blaming us.
Yeah.
And it's, Mike, poor Mike Dell, he's had a week where he's, you know, so, we've done some outreach back over to Spotify and have not gotten a response yet, but it's becoming a real problem, and also offset in from when a publisher publishes an episode until when the episode updates on
Mhm.
Spotify is another issue. Um, and we've looked at the timing, and they're pulling the feed, so we don't know why they're not updating. And they're pulling the feed about every 10 minutes. So
Mhm.
they're being pretty active in pulling feeds. So there's no reason why episodes should not be, or not updating over there. Conspiracy, I don't know, but we've reached out to see if we can get an answer. Again, this is the Spotify. This isn't about Apple. Apple listings update pretty quickly now. They've been very proactive.
Yeah.
Now,
Yep.
I can't really go into any details, and a few of you are like, "Oh shit, here he goes again." Um, but we were briefed this week on some stuff that's coming in from Apple that I'm pretty excited about. Um, and we're the first podcast company to get briefed on it. Then there's going to be others, but fun stuff. And I think the main thing is Apple is continuing to be proactive. They are they're continuing to develop. They're continuing to listen to hosts. They're listening to podcasters. So, if people have this perception that they're not doing anything over there, they are. They're staying busy, and Apple's way of staying busy.
Well,
And
Todd, that's obviously good to hear. They're not helping themselves by being so quiet about things too.
well,
So, yeah.
again, Apple does things their way,
Yeah, they
and
do.
they
Yeah,
and
and they always
some
have. Right.
and sometimes they have to come out and say, "Hey, we need to talk to you because X, Y, and Z, and you have to prepare," or whatever it may be.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, from that instance, I think that they're being proactive.
Well, that's good.
So
That's good.
um, on a variety of levels. And anytime I meet with any of those team members, they always listen, and they always take on our suggestions.
Mhm. Oh,
And
yeah.
and it probably goes in a list. And I'm sure
Yeah.
what they do is just like anything else. They weigh, 5 of us or 10 of us or 15 of us ask for something. It goes on a list, and then they figure out their priorities, and it is what it is. And um,
Mhm.
but again, I think, going back to our conversation as we started the show today, um, in this other conversation it's happening in a WhatsApp group, um, we are many hosts have supported video, Libsyn, Podbean, us at Blueberry.
That's about it.
uh, I think there's a few more, and
Is there
maybe
a few
that
more?
and there
Well, I
needs
know that
probably.
Hubhopper kinda supports it. I don't know how many others, though. I mean, do you
But
happen to
if
know any names of any of
you
the
know
platforms?
yeah, but again, we'd have to go through and compile that.
Right.
True Fans is
Yeah.
supporting it. But if we go back
Yeah, but they're
and
not hosting any
no,
video pods.
no.
Right.
And as I mentioned a comment, I said, "Listen, we were hosting video
Yeah,
when our
and you
bandwidth
still
cost
are.
was 10 cents a minute. I mean, 10 cents a gig,
A gig, yeah.
and now, probably most podcast hosts are at sub penny per gig,
Yeah.
and it's still expensive. So it was a loss leader for us for a long, long time. And
Well, it's
it wasn't
also the expectation of resolution file size for video has gone up, probably proportional to
right.
that, because in the early days of video podcasting, the expectation of, resolution and file size and stuff was a little bit less.
But I still put this show out at 720p on
Which is good and
on
bad in the
on
bigger picture of things, but yeah.
Apple Podcasts. Well, it's never been an issue, and I've always said that the long as the audio's good,
Yeah.
you know. But again, here's why did I put 720p for a podcast episode, RSS-based podcast? It's
Mhm.
because of the ability now for if someone is going to use or watch on some of a few of the apps that support video in
Mhm.
podcasting, including the new podcast apps at podcastapps.com. I have to have an experience for them that allows them to watch the video, and not have the old school
The spinning wheel
spinning
of
wheel.
waiting for it. Yeah.
I know, and some of these other third-party services that are out there that are talking a lot about video today, the primary video consumption platforms, "Oh, we gotta do 4K." Well, to be honest with you, where I'm at here right now, I'm not watching when I get YouTube videos, they're not streaming at 4K, and the reason is my bandwidth doesn't support it. So I get a dumbed down, I get a 1080 or 720p version of the
Yeah.
video that YouTube is re-encoded. And yeah, sure, if you're on a fiber internet connection and
There's plenty of bandwidth for that.
there
Yeah, I'd say
might
that the most common now is probably 1080p would be the most common right
I think
now.
a lot of YouTubers are doing 2K, 2 and 4K.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you're talking about,
yeah,
the streaming platforms, yeah, I agree. I mean, 4K is very common
and to be
on
honest with you, you
YouTube.
guys don't need to see that I didn't shave this morning, and
I'm okay
so
with it, actually.
well, but again, if we're in 4K, they're gonna, they'll be able to see all my wrinkles. So I don't really need to go to 4K, um, for how I deliver this show as a podcast in an RSS feed. So, um, in the sense that video, and we've talked about this 100 times already. We have to have the app developers support it, number one.
Mhm.
And number two, we have to make podcasters aware that this is possible, that this can be delivered via RSS. Most podcasters, when you talk to them, they have nary a clue that video can be consumed on a podcast app. They just don't know. They're
Right.
astounded. Their mouth drops open. So
Well, because as an industry, we haven't really promoted it. We haven't really made any
right.
visibility to
Well,
it. It's not really
it's
touted.
because Blueberry, Libsyn, and Podbean have been the primary ones supporting video. And there's
Mhm.
again, if we missed you, I'm sorry, but maybe you're not advertising it enough that you do it. So, hey Rick, Rick just left a comment in the chat. He said on Facebook, "I'm supposed to be editing my show right now, but I'm watching this instead." Rick, no need to edit. Just put it out there, baby. Uh, and for those that don't know, Rick Savoya is a longtime podcaster, been around almost probably from nearly the beginning. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we can kind of get off it's not our fault, you know. And again, Blueberry, Libsyn, and Podbean were around many years before many of these other entrants came into the podcasting space and chose not to support video. And I know of
Right.
one big podcast host that says, "No, I'm not gonna do it." They don't wanna incur the cost.
It's a very big host, and actually, I think 2 out of the top 3, have been very vocal that they're not going there. So it's,
Well, and
I
it
don't
tell
know.
but
I
it
mean, is
tells
that
you
the right choice? Is that the right choice, Todd?
it's their choice.
Oh, I know it is, but is it the best industry choice?
I think the ship has sailed. Um,
Well, I I was hoping to talk about that a little bit here.
I, and
Yeah.
again, I just have to go back to talking to
Mhm.
podcasters on a daily basis, new podcasters, and the high majority of them, again, the 90% that are, what's the word I want to use? New, existing, ones that are not making any advertising money, the ones that are doing this because um, they have a goal to reach people via, and they just don't have time. They don't have the money. They don't have the patience. They don't have the background to do video. Have no desire to do video. So I would say the again, we have to remember that advertising has driven this whole narrative, and it's all about advertising dollars. And it's not truly about what's in the best interest of podcasting. And yeah, you're gonna have
Well,
stuff on YouTube. Yep, you're gonna have stuff on Spotify. But there's a lot of
yeah.
pissed off people about way Spotify's announced what they're doing and how they're monetizing. So again, I think I'm not too stressed about it. I know where my bread is buttered, and my bread is buttered from audio. And we're gonna continue to focus on audio while offering some video alternatives. But we
Mhm.
got to have the apps they want to play. But if the apps have conceded, if Apple Podcasts has conceded video, if um, then what does that leave me? I'm building video. I have video support for who? A
Well,
handful of apps.
if Apple chooses not to raise the visibility of video content on their platform, they will be continue to be seen as an audio only platform, and they
Right.
will be put in the, I hate to say it, but kind of in the back seat
But
of
again,
what's happening here.
Rob, for a segment of listeners and a segment of
Oh, of course,
creators. Yeah.
of course, but the energy and the buzz right now is being driven out of video. I'm hearing it every
Uh,
place that
okay, but
I talk
again,
to,
the
right?
buzz, but the reality on the ground is
Doesn't matter what the reality is
okay.
really at the bigger picture, it's what people think is the reality is what really drives
Well,
this,
again,
and yeah,
what the reality is for us is that
yeah.
podcast listeners are not asking for this. I mean,
Well,
no,
okay,
not podcast
podcasters or
podcasters, right?
yeah, I would say
Yeah,
that the podcast listeners and viewers are increasingly expecting it, and I think that the research has been clear on that. It's just,
yeah,
and I think it's Spotify's announcements really raise into question about the direction that they're going and how disruptive what they're doing in combination with YouTube is making on the podcast medium, the traditional view of the podcast medium. I think they're in full swing of disrupting it, and it raises significant questions of what's happening here and where is it going? Not so much where it is today, but where is
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
going? What's the momentum? What's the trend line that we're seeing in the market? And it's not in open RSS's favor right now. And that's a trend line that we've been seeing develop over a long period of time. And these big companies don't make these changes necessarily rapidly. It's kind of an evolutionary thing where they chip away at it, right, over a period of
Yeah.
time. But I do think that we've reached kind of an inflection point, right, where Spotify has now decided to that their competitor is YouTube, right?
Right,
So
right.
that's a stake in the ground. This is the first or second largest podcast consumption app in the medium globally, is Spotify, and YouTube is a completely disruptive influence on the podcasting space because they completely we know where YouTube stands.
Right, right.
Spotify is the big question, right? Is this an evolution towards more like a YouTube? And if it is, then I do think, and I know James Cridlin is worried about this too, it's a significant disruption to what we understand as podcasting today.
It's I think the mainstream audio podcast listener, nothing has changed too much.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Um,
If you're an audio podcast listener, nothing is really changing. But
yeah.
if you prefer to listen sometimes and watch other times, right? Then what we're doing is we're limiting what the viewer or the listener has in how they want to get to the content. And so we're gonna make ourselves smaller is what's going to happen, and that's been stated on stage at Podcast Movement by Stephen Bartlett, who's a big creator. And I think that the conversation, and Spotify signaled this at their announcement or at their event, is that they're going to change the name of their publishing platform to um, Spotify for creators, not Spotify for podcasters. So that also is a very significant shift as well,
I'm
that I've
glad
been
they
seeing in the
I'm glad they're going to stop using the word podcasters. Great.
yeah, I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. I think it's an obvious choice given what we're seeing in the market, where content creators are thinking of themselves as content creators that do podcasting or do video. And so siloing their platform when they're moving into video to just podcasting creates a little bit of a question mark, and I don't think they want a question mark. And clearly, I think that's actually a step ahead of even YouTube, I think, in the thinking, because I don't know that YouTube thinks about their podcast publishing channels as channels for creators. I think they think of them as for podcasters.
Well, I think YouTube is just YouTube.
Yeah, they're going to do what they're going to do, and it is significantly disruptive to what
But it's
a
but
lot
it's
of us think of as podcasting.
but it's not disrupting me as a host.
No, no, that's true. At this point, it's not.
Yeah, at this point it's not.
But I think
But
I think part of what I wanted to talk about today too is kind of like backing up and looking at the big picture, right? Of what is really going on here. And I think it's really we've seen the growth and development of all of these social media platforms, right? And that includes X, it includes LinkedIn, it includes YouTube. Is kind of, I don't know that I see YouTube as a social media platform, but I guess it is in a way.
oh yeah.
Um, but there's Pinterest, there's Snapchat, there's TikTok, there's all these other platforms that are now being kind of sucked into the podcaster's purview, right? Or things
Mhm.
that they need to think about trying to address, right? Being a 360-degree content creator, not just a podcaster, which feels very narrow, right? Because it's audio only, right? All these other platforms are audio and video. And so, I think content creators feel under pressure right now to be 360-degree content creators. And I think that's being I I'm hearing people out there that are giving speeches or on podcasts or on video podcasts that are talking about being a content creator includes podcasting, but it includes all these other things as well. And that's what's changing the dialogue right now. And I think that's what's got me thinking that this thinking that we have of the medium being audio only is going to narrow us down to the point where, and then RSS is going to be kind of over time, I think, uh, lowered or depreciated as a priority for these platforms. And they're going to be increasingly heading towards API relationships with publishing platforms versus RSS, and that will
Well,
give them full control, or I hate to say it, Todd, but direct upload. That's
Spotify is not never gonna go to API.
why couldn't they, from a technical perspective?
They will go, they want you to be on their platform and publish on their platform.
Yeah,
That
no, yeah, if you're thinking at that level, I agree with you 100%.
yeah.
That they're gonna drive their main initiatives that we've seen over the last couple of years, and you and I both know that when they entered this medium, they wanted to cache and rehost. It's the same thing
Right.
that Facebook
Right.
wanted to do. It's the same
Well,
thing that
they still do
yeah, with
to
some
people
shows.
that submit
Right.
direct. Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, the Pandora platform wanted to cache and all this kind of stuff as
Mhm.
well. So the industry's been fighting against this caching and redistribution issue for many years.
Yeah.
And it feels like Spotify has now kind of crossed that threshold saying, well, YouTube got away with it. Why can't we? So, I think that's the part. So, what can we do as an industry if we want to keep RSS? What do we have to do to keep that at the forefront, keep people thinking about RSS as the solution here? But the problem with RSS is it doesn't play into the strategy of a proprietary platform, right?
Well,
Where they control everything.
we know that Google on the surface hates RSS. They
Yeah,
have
all
for
these
a
big
long, long
companies
time.
do really
Yeah.
because they wanna be in control, and
Yeah.
they can also see some business advantages to that
Well,
too.
that's where then people need to realize that if this is the route things go, I'm just gonna be a realist. If it's the
Mhm.
route, you are now no longer in control of your show. You have absolutely
Yeah,
you've ceded everything that we've worked with over the last 20 years to ensure open and free distribution
yeah,
of content. It now goes back into a silo, now goes back into a walled garden. We still weekly have YouTubers that come to us crying because they've been locked
they've
out.
been they've been taken down
They've
or
been taken
whatever.
down.
Right.
And they put all their eggs in one basket. And our approach, and my approach has always been, again, distribute everywhere. Distribute everywhere. But don't be a one-trick pony, because in the world we live today, being a one-trick pony, um, sorry, that's not gonna cut it no more.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
be because they are going to all it takes is, well, remember we talked about control your own website, control your own feed. Well, InfoWars,
Yeah,
I don't,
it's a good
and
example of it,
they
right.
they
Yeah.
now have potentially lost. They're back online, but they
Mhm.
potentially are going to lose their .com, and they will truly lose their feed. So this is a situation where, they've circumvented stuff for a period of time until the bankruptcy lawyers have, you know,
Yeah.
taken charge and getting damages for what Alex Jones said. But um, again, I just see it on a day-to-day basis where, folks are reimagining what they have to do. Felix says, I've been an executive director to two recent podcasts, which I've gone with YouTube, no RSS feed, and audio with RSS. My result has been night and day. YouTube views in the millions, audio RSS in the thousands. But I think, Felix, you're going to find that is not the norm.
Mhm.
Close to 10 million views between both podcasts. So you're really a YouTube channel. You're not a podcast. You have a successful YouTube channel. You do not have, or even try to have, a successful
Well,
podcast.
yeah, Todd, I think that's how the content creator needs to think about it, but I'm not sure the audience thinks like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm again,
yeah.
if you want to be on YouTube, be on YouTube. You're going to be a YouTuber then.
Mhm.
Um, and there's no
And
issue
there's a
with that.
lot of different kind of expectations that have to be worked on YouTube if you wanna be successful over
Oh,
there. It's different than podcast.
if you want to be a successful YouTuber, y-
That takes some
f-
effort.
feel free to chase that. That's a rat race.
Well, it's a rat race, and it also requires a different strategy. It
Yeah.
it does require a different strategy around artwork. It
Yeah.
requires a different strategy around, really, in a lot of ways, the content. So if you're gonna merge these things together, you have to be knowledgeable about what is successful on YouTube as well as what's successful on podcasting or audio and meld them together somehow so you can still grow an audience wherever you're distributing your show. But it's not an easy thing to solve. I know I've been struggling with it for months myself. So it's not an
We've
easy
been
one to
we've
get
been
over.
looking at the shows that are using our VidTopod service, where they're
Mm,
basically, they're
yeah.
video first, and they're automatically creating a podcast from their YouTube video. And
Mhm.
the what
How's
we're
that going?
seeing is those shows are doing great. They're doing
Well,
great
good.
as podcasts. They have
Well,
relatively equal numbers of listeners as they do on, as a matter of fact, most of them are very surprised. And they monetize from the very beginning too. So again, if you have success on YouTube, great. Wherever you can build an audience, that's fantastic.
yeah, I think that the approach that is increasingly that I'm gathering based on my research and my efforts in it, if you produce a successful YouTube show, right, or
Yeah.
channel, the principles that made that successful will probably make you successful as an audio podcaster as well. Is when my
Yeah.
but going from audio into YouTube is maybe a more difficult path.
Oh, very difficult.
Right, right. But
Yeah.
going from YouTube to audio
Yeah.
podcasting,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I think is an easier path.
Yeah. And I think Rick is correct. And by the way, Felix, thanks for saying hello earlier in the chat.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Oh, I guess I didn't need to turn that on. He
Well, that's
says the entire
cool
media
that
landscape is going to be a messy one in the next couple of years. That's
well, it
true.
already is messy,
Yeah.
and it's only gonna get more messy because increasingly I'm I I'm hearing, that a lot of these other social media platforms, and one specific example is X, which a lot of people still call Twitter, but, is going to be adding a video tab, to their user interface here
Well,
soon.
they've already done something, because you can't find this show stream live in my Twitter feed. It's buried someplace. It's somewhere else now.
Yeah, so they're basically taking that in. Yeah, I think we talked about this on last week's show, but I think they're taking the video and putting it into its own area so they can create
Yeah, 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 yeah.
kind
A
of a
library.
similar type of a
Yeah.
a video experience, and I think it's gonna be integrated into their Twitter, um, OTT app or their
But
smart
but
TV app.
Rob, also, I think you might be, you're so focused on video. I think you have to also step back.
Yeah,
And from my perspective, this is not an issue for us. Talking with content creators and getting customer support responses.
yeah,
Um,
well,
folks are still primarily, and I'm sure they're looking at video, but most don't have the time or
yeah,
want to have the extra expense in
yeah.
producing it.
Yeah, I think, Todd, that you've made a good connection with that tool that you have of being
Oh
able
yeah,
to take a video creator and port it over to easily creating an audio podcast,
yeah.
and I think that is a powerful connection that maybe is a little bit of an insulator to you for the impacts that are
Well,
developing, right?
again, it's one of those things where people discover that tool and they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. Let me just
Mhm.
do that. It's easy. It's a
Yeah,
no-brainer."
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Um,
tool that will have rapid adoption,
it's
I would
it's
imagine.
not it's not without challenges, because YouTube, they basically have changed a few things in
Oh, they
there.
have on their
Yeah.
API?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because there's a lot of people that have been using the method we were using to to do that, to facilitate that.
That
And
same thing, right, and they're
yeah.
cracking down on it a little bit? Is that what they're
Yeah,
doing?
a little, because we're a very small player. There's people out there that are doing, tens and tons and thousands of, pull downs, and putting them on different services. So, um, we're just an ant in that pile. But yeah, they've made it harder, for sure. And some, basically some recent API changes.
Yeah.
So
Well, Todd, let's talk a bit about what we saw with the impact of podcasting on this past presidential election. I know that there's been some discussion on that as a catalyst for a change in perception, right? Around podcasting and around this kind of this looming or growing or developing kind of battle between legacy media and new media, right? And who's going to win in the long run, right? Around audience and influence. And I
Well,
think, yeah,
I
go
think
go ahead.
just naturally, let's just think about where we are today.
Mhm.
Um, who has a cable,
I know, I know,
the
right.
who has cable
Cable
anymore?
TV, what's that? Right, yeah.
So it's just like radio. Yeah, we still have radio.
Oh, and
L-
then
l-
we should talk about radio too.
and let's just say who of young people, let's say 18 to 35, of that
Yeah.
demographic, who has a cable connection? I don't.
I think
I don't
it's
have
older users typically
right.
have cable TV still. Yeah.
Like I told you here in where I'm at, I've got 2,000 channels. I don't know how they do it,
Yeah.
but I have a little box on here in my apartment. It comes as part of my rent. Um,
Oh, so you're
and
not paying extra for access to that. Okay.
and I get every channel in the world. So
Literally every channel in the world. I Yeah, are you able to get
Rob,
some
there's
USA channels?
absolutely everything.
Wow. Okay.
Pay-per-view, 2,000 channels on this thing.
Wow.
And
That's a lot.
it's definitely,
Too much.
well, no, it's definitely someone is running a very interesting service over here. Let's just put it
Oh, I
that
see what you're saying.
you know. And again, I'm a
Yeah.
I'm I'm a
Yeah, how
big
many
fan.
VPNs are you running? Right? Yeah.
I'm a big fan of paying for my own.
Right. Right.
I pay for my media, so those of you out there saying, "Oh, you're stealing," well,
Right.
let's just talk to the management of this building. They figured this out. And,
Yeah.
so if you think about just the change in demographics of people listening to content, my kids don't have cable television subscriptions.
Yeah. Don't have it.
I
Yeah.
haven't had for years. So what do I get? I get sound bites, you know, probably on YouTube is probably where I get mainstream media sound bites if I go looking for it. And it's, 2 minutes of something or 3 minutes of
Mhm.
something. It's the same shit that they're broadcasting.
Yeah.
And I will say that word liberally because most of the stuff that they're broadcasting is exactly that.
Yeah.
And when I found my stress levels going up, the first election were when it was that for Trump 2000 or no 2020 or I can't even 2016.
2016, 16,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I cut out all mainstream media at that point alone. That's when
Mhm.
I basically said, okay, I'm done. I've had
Yeah,
enough.
I was still on cable television up to, like, 2022.
So I would say
So,
that
yeah.
politics in 2016 made me cut my cable connection, right?
Really?
And
Wow.
I've
It was
never, because it
politics.
was just causing me, I felt it was like is just this big stress and the pandemic and everything else was going on.
Yeah.
So, um, but radio,
Oh,
you
boy.
know,
That's a whole 'nother
I
topic.
haven't listened to a radio, unless I forget my phone and my phone defaults off Apple Play and forces me back on. Usually it just shows me a dead screen now in my
Yeah.
car. And do if there's an actual national emergency, it used to be one of those things that you could tune into local radio and get updates. Well, they don't even do that now.
Mhm.
So the decline of cable television and ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, MSNBC, what other spaghetti word news, they've been going, they've
They've been going downhill for
down
years.
anyway. And same thing
Right.
with radio, just because the younger generation is digitally connected in a different way.
Yeah.
So, so I think what you'll find is that, of course, we have become the actual media.
Yeah, I guess it was just like, an hourglass with sand pouring out of it, right? It was just a matter of time before we made this transition because
Well,
it's a generational shift is what it is,
yeah.
really, in a lot
And
of ways.
in my news feed, there's all these stories about,
Yeah.
people mass exit. Well, also I think too, let's be frank. Um, People have a lot of stuff going on in their lives, and they only
Yeah.
have so many hours. So they said, "Oh, there's this been mass drop of listeners across all these networks." Well, of course, people are
Mhm.
done with politics for at least 3 years,
Right.
and they're tired, and they've got other things to do, and they wanna listen to something more motivating. The world's hard out there right now,
Yeah.
and so
There's a lot of weird stuff going on
they
still.
want some different entertainment. So, they've done it to themselves, number 1, and news wasn't news no more, it was just entertainment. Doesn't matter which ABC, D, E, F,
It was
G,
entertainment, it was
it's so
slanted. Yeah.
what are podcasts, and what are some stuff on YouTube channels? Well, um, they're doing the work. Politics aside,
Yeah.
they're doing the work. There's some incredible interviews out there.
Mhm.
Incredible.
Yeah, 3-hour
On
interviews, right.
the AI side, I'm
Mhm.
listening to these, top 10 people in the artificial intelligence that are showing up on podcasts. I'm, stuff that I'm interested in besides politics, which I'm not.
Right.
Um, if you listen to these interviews, and I don't have time to watch. I watch just like everyone else,
Mhm.
but when I want to get deep, that's where I go. I go to a podcast and
It's the
get
long
deep.
form conversations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did this episode on Podcast Insider. It'll come out here in a couple weeks, talking about the difference between short and long format content. And I have
Mhm.
people within my own company that say, I only listen to short because I only
Yeah.
have time. I just want to get the sound bites.
Mhm.
Whereas I don't want the sound bites. I want the extended conversation. But I
Mhm.
think the risk we have in podcasting is if you're just going to give the sound bites, don't become entertainment. Don't
Right,
become what has failed.
right.
Have enough substantial conversation that people are actually going to learn something and not be just entertained.
Yeah.
Um, but I look at, I there's a real popular, not Rogan, but I don't know the guy's name. It's not Theo Vaughn. Uh, there's another YouTube channel that Trump went on.
Is he a former military guy?
He's got black hair. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
I saw a 5-minute behind the scenes of this guy's studio production.
Mhm.
He's got a room full, 25 people that are in the back running the production for his one person show.
Yeah.
And I said, this guy is not a podcaster.
Well,
He has a show highly produced that has got millions of dollars behind it that
and probably millions of viewers too.
and this is not a what I would consider to be the run of the mill content creator. Um, so if and I looked at his production, I was like, I mean, it looked like if you would have shown the image that I wish I have, let's see if I can find it and
Mhm.
screenshot.
Mhm.
It looked like Fox. It looked like the control room to Fox. I mean, there was wall of monitors, there was producer stations, and I'm like, you've got to be shitting me, because do you need that many people? Well, if you have to have that many people, then there is, and I know Rogan's not the same. Rogan runs a pretty small ship
Mhm.
of people that does his show, and I know a lot of other people do too. But when I saw this guy's setup, I'm like, he is mainstream media based upon
Well,
the level of production.
yeah, I think that's really the big takeaway from this is that if we're going to compete with, I guess, the legacy of mainstream media, in mainstream adoption and mainstream consumption and all this kind of this, I think there has to be a certain amount of content that's created in this new creator economy that achieves that level of production. And so
Oh,
I
it
think
it was
I think
I
we're seeing that happen in real time, and I think that's a big difference between the early years of podcasting and where we see now, and even
well,
the early years of YouTube.
and this guy doesn't say he has a podcast. He has some show. He doesn't call his show a
Yeah, he calls it a
podcast.
show, right?
And
Exactly.
and but again, he's got 40 people behind the scenes, and I'm like,
Well, it's the same thing with Stephen Bartlett with the Diary of a CEO. He's got 50 people behind him on that show too.
so I think when you have average podcaster that I consider a podcaster that is like me right now. I got a little desk here in the corner of my studio apartment, where I'm at currently. I've got a couple of cheap ring lights. I've got a Roadcaster. I'm using Restream to restream. I'm doing my own switching. I'm doing my own captions. Putting those up myself.
Mhm.
Um, this is what the majority of folks I think that are doing stuff on YouTube today are doing. They're a one or two man show. And again, a one or two men or women show. And they don't have this high cost of production like this other group did. So, of course, if a politician calls me and says, "Hey, Todd, I want to be on your show," well, they're going to have to join remotely, just like you, because I don't have a studio here for them to come into.
Right. For an
Um,
in-person, type
right.
of production, right.
And I think the majority of these, um, but I guess the main thing I thought I'd seen this guy's content before, and here I thought that he was just had this small crew, and little did I know, no, it's not a small. Yeah, I think he's got a makeup person. This is it's the full blown deal, and yeah, of course you got to be doing millions of views if you're going to support that kind of a. Now, you're not gotta be
Yeah.
doing millions, you gotta be doing tens of millions
Yeah, and a lot of
of.
those guys are. That's the scale that we're dealing with now because we have crossed over this threshold of importance, in the online dialogue right now. It's moving away from cable television. People just aren't they're tuning out.
Yeah, so
And
if
and the
you
people that are listening to it or watching it are dying off, quite literally.
yes, so if you think about it from that perspective, and we've taken a long time to get here,
Yeah.
the 25 or 30 or 40 or 50 YouTube channels that are leading with millions of viewers, and again, there's not that many that are leading with millions of viewers, on an episode by episode basis, or
Well, I
even
wouldn't
half a million.
yeah, I wouldn't, entirely consider them to be podcasters. I would say that
No.
there's probably more than you think, Todd. I think that
But
there
they
is.
but they still
Yeah,
have they have big teams, they're big productions.
right.
So, um, to
And
think
audio is a very small part of what they do.
to
That's
think
the takeaway,
but
right.
to think, again, we have to keep this in perspective, of the 400 or 400,000 or whatever it is, active podcasters, audio podcasters.
Mhm,
When you have 20 people that make up this elite group of video creators, and then everyone saying video is the way. Well, yeah, for those 20, absolutely,
mhm.
you know, but you have to have
They're a video
10,
first platform
but
or
you have to have
creator, right.
10,000 hours of video and audio listening on YouTube, not on YouTube, on Spotify now to qualify for monetization in the past
Yeah,
month.
yeah, 2,000, right? Or is it
No, it's
4,000?
10,000 and
I
on Spotify.
I didn't think it was that high.
Oh, yeah, that was their number, was 10,000 hours in the last month to qualify for monetization on Spotify.
I don't remember it being that high.
Yeah, go look at the it that was the thing that got the most pushback, whereas YouTube is 2 or 4,000 hours in a year.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's currently 1,000 subscribers and I believe 2,000 hours in a year.
yeah, so there was a subscriber count, but there again, it was 10,000 hours. So the majority of shows that will never get that type of reach. 97% will never hit those numbers over at Spotify to be able to earn any money. Um, so I think that, the perspective is everyone thinks they're going to go do video and they're going to get rich. And that's not the case. Because in the end, if you're going to spend all this time doing video, yeah, I have to look here. Let me look at the Spotify streaming video.
Okay. It says on Google here that the minimum stream um, is 1,000 streams within 12 months.
No, that's not for monetization on Spotify. That's not what they announced.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay. Okay, I found another section that says, um, okay, it says, yeah, it says Spotify creators platform have streamed 10,000 hours and at least 2,000 unique views in a 30-day period.
In the 30-day period, whereas
2,000
YouTube
views in a 30-day period. Right.
and where YouTube for podcasters, they reduce it to 1,000 subs, 2,000 hours, where a normal YouTube channel is
Right.
1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours in the last 365 days. And when you
Mhm.
have the
Oh, and
majority,
also published at least 12 episodes. So you have to publish at least 12 episodes before you can even qualify to
so
be
that
considered.
is going to, so again, so the average podcaster that has a video on Spotify is going to earn zero, zero.
At this point,
Uh,
right. That's true.
that's an insurmountable number for most.
Well, and if you
10,000.
look at yeah, if you look at what YouTube did, over the last year, they used to be, I believe 4,000 hours,
Yeah, for a regular
of
YouTube channel, it's
right,
4,000
right,
hours, and then they
and I
lowered
think
it for podcasters.
yeah, and I think it was 2,000 subscribers
Yeah,
was the old metric. Now
yeah,
it's they cut it in half is what they did.
yeah.
So
Not for
so
regular YouTubers, for specifically for podcasters, they made some special deal.
oh, did
I
they
rem if
make
I
a
remember
special deal?
correctly, but anyway, 2,000, 4,000. But it's a lot easier to qualify to monetize. This channel here has never, ever on YouTube qualified for advertising. We've never hit that number. So, yet the show
Well,
does,
yeah, well, Todd,
17,000.
it's not something that you focused on either.
No.
It's not a priority for you to optimize it to be a successful channel on that
Yeah.
spectrum. So, I've really kind of doubled down my effort on mine, and I'm I'm monetized.
But
It's just
what did you get a check yet?
yeah, I've gotten checks. Yeah.
What are they? $20?
They're a few $100 right now. I'm
Oh,
trying to
that ain't
grow it.
bad. That ain't
Mhm.
bad.
Yeah. So,
So, but
yeah, I mean,
again,
it's growing, so that's what I'm hoping to keep it on track
so
on.
when people say we're chasing the money, well, you're for most shows, again, it goes back. Will Spotify give you any money? No, they won't, unless you hit
Yeah.
this massive number in a month. 10,000 hours. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's such scale out there right now, that's potential, on all
Oh,
these
there's potential.
platforms.
Well, there's potential scale in podcasting too, you know?
It's it's different though, Todd, because podcasting has a little bit more of a limited, I say, distribution reach into platforms that have that scale.
Oh,
So, I mean, it's
oh,
only Spotify and it's mainly Spotify and Apple, right? And those are significant platforms, but those
yeah.
platforms typically don't do rev share, don't do
Right, right, right. You have to do your own monetization.
right, right.
Unless you're
So you
host
can't
unless you're hosting with Blueberry, you can get
right,
monetization
right, right.
from day one.
Right, right, from the host side, right.
Yeah, yeah.
And my my kinda secondary concern too, and I know that, others have this concern too, is that if these big proprietary platforms become more dominant, right, and they start heading down this path of increasingly, caching and rehosting, then that's gonna break all these dynamic ad insertion
Oh,
models.
yeah. Break it completely.
Right,
'Cause they
and
want they
that's
'cause that's it's all about money, Rob, because they want that 70 or 60% or whatever it is.
they want the sponsors to buy into your show on their platform so they get a rev share out
Yeah.
of it. Because if
Did
it's
you
a
see
pass-through, then they don't get a share out of that.
did you see the contracts that, the 2 contracts that were revealed in court filings from Cast Media's bankruptcy?
No, I haven't seen them.
So,
What kind of a
boy,
split were they? Were they 50/50s?
some of them were 70-30. They were structured, weird. You get so much percentage, it's a certain level of number of each deal was different. It was pretty
Oh,
interesting read.
yeah.
Guarantees, and how much that you'll get and, for the first 1,000,000 downloads, and it's real money, real big
Yeah, I heard
money.
that the whole guarantee thing is a little out the window now.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
what I
much
keep
gone.
hearing in the industry, right?
You know and we continue to grow, I looked at the numbers come in about the 18th or something like that with us for our programmatic, and
Mhm.
we're continuing to grow month after month, writing bigger checks,
Yeah.
to a larger number of shows. So,
Oh, that's good.
but again, if you have a small show, which majority of shows are small,
Yeah.
um, you're gonna get a comparative amount of earnings if you choose to do that. But I think, again, we have to back up and also understand that the majority of podcasts don't wanna monetize. They have no desire.
Yeah.
So, it's a segment of shows that wanna monetize and are focused on that.
Mhm.
So, I think we have to not
Yeah.
forget that, and
Yeah.
again, there's lots of options. That's great. It's good for the folks that are creators that there's lots of
Yeah.
options out there.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Rick says, I think legacy media is already lost, at least from my perspective. For example, I get most of my news now from YouTube and podcasts. Yeah,
I'm the
and
same way. Yeah.
Rick's an old guy like us. Sorry, Rick.
And I think you become a little smarter and more informed about doing that, because you do that versus
No, I
listening to
absolutely.
legacy media, right?
You know,
Which has not a less than stellar reputation.
well, they're just extensions of political parties, is all they
Yeah,
are.
but a lot of people don't realize that, or
Yeah.
don't want to accept that
Now,
that
some
that
people say that
that's
about
the case.
X too at this point, so,
Well,
but
that's a good lead in to talk about what's going on with that.
well, and here's the thing, people are leaving for 1,000,000
For
people left for
for
whatever.
blue sky.
But, here's the problem
Blue
now. Did you
sky.
hear what Blue Sky's got a problem with?
Oh, I'm sure they have all sorts of problems over there.
Well, now, because of this influx,
Yeah.
they're they're having, problems with moderation because people are reporting
Oh,
all kinds of content on
right, at a
Sky.
massive degree, I heard, right.
Yes.
People are snitching on each other over there.
right. It sounds to me like what has happened, and don't take this the wrong way, but this mindset of wanting to um, censor people. Why?
That's
Why
a
do we want?
self-eating scenario, right?
Why do we want to censor speech?
Because
It,
we
it's
wanna control other people. Yeah.
so it's just like people leave certain states for other states because they're tired of the property taxes and income taxes and everything else, and then they go to the states, and then they start wanting the same policies in place the states that they left, and
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
what were you thinking? You just
Yeah.
left. You left California for Texas, and now you want Texas to be
Be
California?
like California, right, yeah. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
It doesn't. And
That's been a big problem over the last couple of years. Rational thinking has been a little bit on the, short side.
I think, it's across the board. It's not just one.
No, right. It's everywhere, right. So it's yeah.
So is
But anyway,
podcasting now the media? Is that the question we're trying to answer here? Or is, YouTubers and podcasters and, Spotifyers and whatever we're gonna call them now,
well, Todd, I think,
TikTokers.
I'm increasingly looking at this from, from a higher perspective, from, above looking down, not so much looking at it from inside one part of it, right? Is that from an audience perspective, and oftentimes the audience are the creators too. So we kind of have this blending that's happening between creators and consumers of online content, right? They're oftentimes one and the same people, but there is a small set, which has always been in the data. There's always been a small set of online users that have created the majority of the online content, right? So you have like 20% of all of the users on X or Facebook generate 80% of all of the content that's published on the platform, right? So you have this creator set. Now, granted, that's probably I haven't seen a recent number on that, but that goes back to the early days of the social platforms where it's usually a small group of people that generate most of the content, most of the activity on the platform, right? So that's why I think X kind of moved towards this monetization model that has pretty big targets, and that's not unlike what Spotify is doing now, right? Is to create this ability to share revenue based on success, and so we're seeing this perception of the audience, right? That what's happening here is online content. And what's the first term that comes to mind when you think about online content, Todd? Is it just video, or is it um,
Well,
podcasting?
I'm
Is it
old school, so it's websites and audio and video.
okay? Those are terminology. Those are references that go back to traditional media, right? So as we think about the new media landscape, right, going forward, podcasting has kind of attached itself to the zeitgeist of this new form of media, right? And I'm increasingly thinking that maybe the term podcast is going to be more associated with online content, um,
Oh, of
and
course.
and what audiences perceive as online content, right?
Yeah.
And so and then each of
Rob,
us,
it has been. Come on now.
right? No, I'm just saying that it's kind of
Yeah.
reached a point that's overcome legacy media, which is broadcast media that considers himself to be video and
Oh, yeah,
television
yeah,
and
yeah,
all this
yeah.
kind of stuff, right? So we've kind of moved beyond that, and podcasting as a term is going to, I think, ultimately replace those terms, because those networks and those platforms and stuff are going to decline to the point where they're really irrelevant, and we may be already there, and that's what I'm pointing out
Well,
here. I think.
I again, at what point and I don't know what CNN or MSNBC or Fox numbers were. I have no idea. but the
There are a lot
advantage
more.
but the advantage the reason they're not gonna go completely away is they have the ability still at this point to be online 24 hours a day, 7
Mhm.
days a week. They may have rinse, wash, repeat programming every hour or every 30 minutes, but it is something where people can still today tune in to get a breaking news story, to be able to go. And that is the only advantage that they currently have over Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn because they're usually a set scheduled release. They may be on for an hour a day. So, what will really be impactful is if at some point um, in the new media scene, where you have collaboration, just kind of like what, oh, what's the network that the conservative network,
Daily Wire?
Daily Wire, so the Daily Wire could set up to be on 24 hours a day. Daily Wire is big enough where they could have a series of hosts that could come in and there would be linear content 24 hours a day. I don't know
Well,
if
The
people
Blaze
want
is already doing that with Glenn Beck. I mean, he's already streaming all day long, and I know
so
that
he has different
other.
people that come in all day long. He's not
Yeah,
on
yeah.
all day. He does
Yeah,
his
yeah,
3 hour
they've
stint.
built networks, just like Dave
Yeah,
Ramsey
yeah,
has
yeah.
a bunch of shows.
Yeah.
And other folks too have a bunch of different shows that are increasingly moving towards live streaming,
Right.
community building, and being able to be available all the time.
Uh,
Even like the Daily Turks is another example if you wanna talk about
oh, yeah, yeah. Conservative,
a
or liberal side. Yeah.
a liberal network that's out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
which there are plenty, of actually, prior to this election, I think over the last 8 years, liberal podcasts and liberal shows have really dominated
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
new media landscape
Yeah.
or the podcasting
But
landscape.
it's a
It's only been
wonderful
the last few years that the conservatives have kind of caught up
It's
of
it's
sorts.
it's pretty wonderful that and again, these are big businesses now. These are not
Mhm.
small independent businesses, but they started from ashes. They started from nothing and it
Right.
built themselves up to the point where they have a huge following. And
And we're actively seeing a lot of the anchors from the major news channels
right, move into them.
exiting
Yeah.
to start their own stuff, Chris Cuomo's got his own video podcast now, and I think we heard Chris Wallace left, Fox News here recently to or CNN, I
Well,
think is where he left.
they're it's the rats are banding the ship.
Yeah, they are. It's 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 a sinking ship is what it is,
But again, I
so,
think that
right.
it's just like radio. You know, they're going to be, you and I saw a you commented on a Facebook thread and I commented on a Facebook thread. Matter of fact, I think your comment was removed from that Facebook thread.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it reappeared and I was trying to, it's basically someone that said they're leaving X and what do you think about that? And we both,
Going
I
over to Blue Sky. Yeah, I got
yeah, yeah,
involved in a
yeah.
conversation with those folks about that. Their thinking on that, right? Why are
Yeah,
they leaving X when
right.
X is the global community square of topics and stuff? I mean, it is kinda similar to people that are exiting X maybe to go over to True Social
But the thing
and
on
then
X though is
Blue
I
Sky.
see I see, right giving it as hard as left is
Oh,
giving it.
yeah.
Oh,
And
it's
what's wrong with that? That's what
right,
this whole
right.
country is all about, is talking about the important issues of our
Yeah, yeah,
country, not
yeah,
running to our sides and pretending like the other side doesn't exist.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, I may not like what someone has to say, but at least I can see what they
Yeah,
say
you
or
can
hear what
say it
they say.
and you can have a lively debate about it, but the problem is now we've seen people that even question one side are attacked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for having a
But that's
different opinion and
but that's been going
demonized
on
and
that's been going on for a while now,
right,
you know?
and that's what needs to stop, is
So
that
do you
people
I mean,
need to
well,
talk.
that's I attribute that to why the election happened the way the election happened. People were not willing to vocalize what they truly thought
Mhm.
because
They're scared to
they're
say
scared of
anything.
being being fired, being ridiculed at work, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I think that had an
So
impact on the polls too.
oh, yeah,
I think
because people call you, "Who you're voting for?" Well,
if you're
maybe
scared
they
to
lied
say
or they lied.
exactly, or if you're scared to say who you're gonna vote for. And then the Democrats on their side were shaming women to go into the voting booth and and vote for the other party if even if your husband wanted you to vote for somebody else and just don't tell them,
That
right?
to be honest with you, can you imagine that is so uh, I
It's just really, really messed up is what it is.
no, Shoko couldn't vote because she was a green card holder, never became naturalized. I can imagine if she had been able to vote, for me to tell her who to vote for, and that would've
Well,
went over
Todd,
like
in
a
some
fart.
states, she probably
That
could
that
have voted.
that would've went over like a fart in church, there'd have been a bit of a dispute,
Well,
I
we
don't
know
think
where Hawaii stands, so, right.
well, but I'm just saying, d you know, good luck telling anybody if even okay, oh, so
I know,
misogynist.
I know, yeah, yeah.
I think
So
that's the
it's
word.
is it? Okay.
I'm using a word that's outside my vocabulary, so I gotta
Yeah,
be careful here.
right. We have to be careful. But, yeah, I mean, I think increasingly we shouldn't have to be so careful. I I I think
Well, I think in podcast, that's the beauty of podcast, but again, we are in a time,
of
where your
change.
words can have consequences, so I think people have
Yeah,
been
I agree with that,
restrained,
Todd. Yeah, I think we've
and
always had that, even in
it's just like
the years of more free speech, right?
it's just like this show,
Right.
we delved into some we normally never ever talk about politics here, and the thing is I want people to understand is we're not picking sides. I don't wanna pick sides. I wanna make sure that we're talking about the dialogue of what's possible to share in
Yeah,
podcasting,
right.
so it's not that we're picking winners or losers here. It's just about the conversation about what's happened because of the conversation that
Yeah.
happened in the election. So,
Yeah, no, I'm in favor of the Constitution, if that tells you anything.
well, I
That
spent
yeah,
25 years in the Navy, and I'm a very and Blueberry is a very pro free speech company. It's fundamental. It's part of our, I guess you would say, our charter. And
yeah,
that's why I can say very proudly that probably in the 19 years we've been in business, there's probably less than 20 shows we've ever had to remove from the network.
mhm,
And it was because of something really bad,
right,
you
right.
know. The threat of murder, the threat of I mean, just really heinous stuff. But I'm not going to remove someone for an opinion.
Right.
And stating an opinion, long as you don't invoke violence on somebody, it's okay to have an opinion.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people need to become more educated about what the First Amendment actually says, and also what the legal restrictions on speech, that
Well,
exist, right?
depending if you live in the UK or not, but
Right.
if you're in the United
Uh,
States,
yeah, it's
and
different.
it goes back to the InfoWars thing. If
Yeah,
you can say what you want to say, but your words can have consequences if you say stuff that can be found in a court of law that you have, um, you've made something that someone has a case against you, and
Yeah.
you can lose money, your livelihood, um, that goes along with it. So,
You'd be sued for $1 billion.
right, you can, and I think that that's an edge case,
Yeah. That's a
but
good example, though. It's a good example.
at this, and here's where um, the bigger challenge really, and if we go back to this, is you don't have free speech on YouTube, you don't have free speech on Spotify. Um, you have to watch your words on those platforms.
And you don't
Uh,
always know what they are censoring either.
that's
That
right.
that's the insidious part of it too. And it's easy to wade into waters that you don't realize you're wading into, and then you find out later that your show's been taken down or it's been demonetized
And
or right.
you do have free speech in podcasting. So
Mhm.
I will contend with all this push to demonize
Well,
RSS
yeah.
by two companies specifically.
Mhm.
They are not your friends. They are
Right.
not they are not a friend to creators. They are a friend to shows that they have advertising in.
Right.
Um, but
And if
they
you're
will
a big creator, you're gonna fall under the purview of brand suitability and safety platforms
well,
too.
actually, you'll get bigger pass. Look at Rogan, you know? He's gotten a pass and stuff, he said, that other he would have got shut down otherwise. So I think
Yeah,
that,
because there's people making too much money
that's
to
right. It's all about the
to shut him
money.
up.
It's all about the money. And, so, again, you may not think your content is fringe, but all you gotta say is one thing, just one thing wrong, and boom, you're done.
Yeah,
Or there's a change of policy in the company, and the type of content you're creating is no longer wanted,
yeah.
um, right or left, or by topic, and it might not even be political. It might just,
Mhm.
you look at the demonetization of the Second Amendment, conversation.
Right, right.
Um, so a lot of videos for people that have Second Amendment shows have been demonetized and driven down.
Yep.
So a lot of those
And
shows had to go find new homes.
and just to be clear about it too, there are no free speech requirements, legal requirements that are, applicable to a private platform. So the I
Right.
went through and I read it. The First Amendment really applies to government putting their thumb on speech, not on
It's to
individual
prevent them. It's to
private platforms.
yeah, it's to prevent them from suppressing free speech,
Right.
which in
It's the
recent
government from doing it, which is what we saw with the Twitter files,
right,
where the
right,
government
yeah,
was in the process of censoring and shadow banning people through a portal.
right,
That is against First Amendment.
right. And
But
to me, that story didn't get enough juice behind it. Most people didn't realize the how bad that really, really was. So whereas in podcasting today, and again, you controlling your RSS feed on your own .com, you
mhm.
can be assured, yeah, maybe you will not reach 1,000,000 people like YouTube, but you can say what you wanna say. But their
Well,
shows
and yeah, and you don't even know. So let's say you put up a piece of content on some of these platforms that maybe is, right on the edge, right, of talking about a
yeah,
topic that may be sensitive. They can easily suppress that.
suppress it,
Um,
yeah, drive it down.
and because Elon has said this many times, even on Twitter X, is that you're free to say something, but you're not free to get anybody to see it.
Right.
So that could be a little bit of the insidious things that are going on is that you may put up a terrific video or you might put up a terrific piece of content and you get 2 or 3 views. Well, maybe that was because it was algorithmically suppressed.
But Rob, I think in the end here, we have to also be very, very clear.
Mhm.
Audio podcasting is very healthy right now from an
Okay.
audience standpoint. You know,
Yeah.
the
And it's
audience
still
is not.
growing, it's still growing, it's
Yeah,
still big. I mean, if you look at even, like, Joe Rogan's numbers, he's probably getting more audio listens than he is video still,
but
probably, would be my guess.
we've always been the bastard childs of content creation.
As it continues, right, Todd? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's in the beginning we were. Oh,
yeah,
podcasting is nothing.
right, right.
As we've been
Well,
talked down to for years.
that's
So
certainly the opinion of the big radio companies for many years.
right.
I mean,
You
you and
know,
I both have been at those
we
conferences. We know
as
exactly where we
we're
are,
in a
right?
radio conference and, the podcasting session
Yeah.
comes out and 180 people walk out and get a drink, and there's 10 people left to talk to,
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah,
you get the look down the nose at you. "Oh, what do you do?" "I'm a podcaster." "Oh."
yeah,
And now that's changed. Radio's kinda figured it out that, they gotta do something, but
yeah. That's a whole
and
other conversation.
not to bash radio, but, it served a purpose, but now through consolidation and, you know, you don't
Layoffs,
you might get 2
cutbacks.
hours of local drive if you live in a big metropolitan area. You live where I live, psh, you get
There's
syndicated.
I don't know about Utah, but I'm hearing a lot of disenchantment with the radio industry right now, publicly, with all sorts of people that have been many years in the radio industry are really kind of like, "Okay, we're getting close to the end here." Um,
I don't know about that.
well,
We've
I
been
mean
saying radio is gonna end for 20 years, Rob.
well, no, I'm not saying it's gonna end. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people that were in the industry, that have now been either pushed out, fired,
Right.
let go. There's, a continuing it's been the audience has not been falling off like off a cliff. It's been going a little bit down, a little bit down, a little bit down over a long period of time, as well as podcasting has gone up a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time over a long period of time. So they've been kind of inverse with each other.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to a point where I think podcasting is crossing over with radio audience levels now. I haven't seen a recent study on that. I don't know if you have, Todd.
Well, I think the Edison stuff still shows that more people are listening to radio than they are to
Yeah, but
podcasting.
are they counting music stations and they're counting sports broadcasts? Are they counting,
Um,
all this live event stuff? Are they is the bucket that they're counting so much different than talk content,
no,
right?
because podcasting is all talk.
Yeah, so you have to compare talk programming to
Yeah, yeah,
radio talk programming, and I think if you do that, then I think it creates
yeah,
a little bit of a different
yeah.
dynamic.
If you leave out FM 100, Rock 100,
Yeah,
that maybe has 2 hours of drive, which you'd have to include,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's essentially talk, but it's still still music playing.
And a lot of those music stations, though, they don't really do any talk programming anymore. I think it's all just
Well,
programmatic music.
I think that they're a big station in a big metropolitan area. They usually have drive. They have the morning show.
Oh, like a zoo kind of a
Yeah, as
multi-person program. Right,
personality does the
right,
morning show, but again, it
right.
has to be a big enough metropolitan area to support it.
Yeah, and it's probably syndicated too, probably. Um,
Sometimes they are, you know,
yeah.
but again, like a city like Chicago it has a number of stations, has a big enough metropolitan area where they have, they're given the update highway reports. So,
Yeah, Todd, did you see the statistics that were put in Pod News? Thank you, James Kirtland, for this. This took some research on his part, but, how bad is pod fade?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so Pod News, suggests that, of 24,464 podcasts, so about 25,000 podcasts started in January of 2024, so at the beginning of the year.
yep,
Um, the calculation this is I think it's pulled from the Podcast Index, I believe. It said 7,300 or 7,400 shows, or 30%, haven't posted a new episode since the end of January. So they went for 30 days.
Yeah.
So 30% of those shows that started in January of this year
Didn't
stopped
make it. Yeah.
at the end of February.
Yep.
So, and I guess if you go across the board here, it's like 22.7% of shows started on Spotify for creators in January haven't posted uh, so almost 23% of the shows that started on Spotify didn't post a new episode after February. And then I think it looks like Asha had 20%, Megaphone had 18.9, Podbean had 12.6, and Libsyn had 12.3. So, so
And what you should do, James, is run that across number of episodes. Don't look at time. Look at the
yeah, and
number
then,
of episodes created before the show quit.
yeah, and then the other kind of data point here too is that the well-publicized free podcast hosting plans, right?
Yeah.
And the platforms that have the most of those, right, is Spreaker is number one with 40% of their shows didn't publish a new episode after 30 days, and then RSS 71% and Hubhopper 83%. So
Not surprised in those numbers at all.
yeah, those are newer podcasters, right? Is who we're talking about here. So back at the early beginning of the year, January is a typical kind of like New Year's resolution kind of time frame, right? Where people say, "Well, I'm going to start a podcast for the new year," and then they fizzle out by the end of February.
Well, we had a big bump the 2 weeks, well, the previous 2 weeks following the election. We've seen
Yeah,
a big surge and
yeah,
new account creations. I haven't went in and looked at the types yet. I still have that as a task to do, but um, we know that from a listener standpoint, starting around December 15th through January 30th, that's your biggest time to pick up new subscribers.
it's the New Year's resolution
Yeah,
thing.
because
Yeah,
people are cleaning out their phones, got new phones. They basically are looking for new content. Um, they're looking for new types of content. Again, I think it probably is directly related to New Year's resolutions to an extent.
hmm,
But I also think it's because people get downtime during the holidays and they are just, kind of house cleaning and looking for new stuff. So I think that is as a big part of it as anything else. So don't
yeah,
stop creating content during the holidays.
yeah, exactly. Oh, also, I wanted to mention too, for those that are maybe looking at launching a podcast between now and the new year, um, that there is potential delays with Apple Podcasts on processing a new submission around like the key holidays. So like the
They've
couple
announced
weeks.
they announced their dates already.
Yeah. Yeah. So just want to let everybody know that too. If you're trying to launch your show right before Thanksgiving or something like that, you're probably not going to get in till after Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
It's the same thing with Christmas.
Rick says the attrition is a good reason for the rest of us to keep on podcasting. Yes,
Right.
I
Right.
absolutely agree. And by the way, I've got a Black Friday sale announcement that's just popped up here in Restream. It said 50% off only this Black Friday. So, if any of you that have a monthly subscription with Restream, it would be a great time to convert that to an annual
Oh, yeah. And
because
save some money.
and
Right.
save some money. And I did. I had a monthly subscription and I upgraded a little bit and then saved myself $196 for the whole year, which is was big, big savings. So
Yeah.
so
Well,
keep an
Todd, I
eye
think
on.
Oh, go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah, just keep an eye out for those types of deals.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I think we reached the bottom of the hour.
We
So,
did. We did.
yeah.
And I'm going to put this in the can and I'm going to go back to sleep. Um,
Okay.
this is my normal sleep time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, because
Well,
typically I try to sleep to about 1
uh-huh.
and yeah, so yeah, this getting up in the middle of my sleep cycle sucks, but it is what it is.
It's only a couple times a week, right, that you're doing
Yeah,
that?
yeah, 3 times a week, so it might as
Yeah.
well be the whole week. But,
Right.
one thing is good though is, 85 degrees and beautiful and humidity's down and
Wow. Wow, that's
yeah,
nice.
so, for those of you that are, starting to, get chilly, there are warm places on the planet to be.
Well, it's been warm in Connecticut the last,
Yeah, that's what
the whole
I've
fall,
that's
right?
what I've heard, it's been a warm fall.
Yeah, it's been
So
sunny and blue sky every day. So,
so Rob, give me your info.
well, I'm on all the social platforms, as you might expect, and it's mostly under the name Rob Greenlee, so you can find me anywhere out there. So, and if you want to send Todd and I an email, you can send one to me, Rob Greenlee at gmail.com. We'll get an email to me, and we'd love to hear from you and get your feedback on some of the topics that we've covered on the show, and you know, it's a little bit of a check-in about how we're doing too. So feel free to share your thoughts because we are a free speech show here.
That's right. And of course, I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on X. I'm at Geek News at geeknews.chat on Mastodon. And of
Yep.
course, if you want to follow the show on X, it's at NMS Podcast. Of course, we're at newmediashow.com. So go over there and subscribe, follow, or subscribe to the show. And
Yeah, and
we
all the old episodes are there too, so you can check them out.
But we're gonna get bashed again for all this, political and YouTube talk today. We're gonna get hate email again.
Well, hopefully that'll die down a little bit here, Todd.
Yeah, I would think so. So, what say you? What is your plans in your podcasting journey? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
For those who've been watching live and Rick and Felix and everyone else that sent comments, thanks so much. And if you were, in the middle of editing something, I didn't look at the, someone says politics. Arg. Chad F says, was it Patrick Bet David? Yeah, that's who it was. That was
Oh,
the
Patrick
YouTuber.
Bet yeah, he's got a huge channel. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's the guy that had a studio that was like a news production studio. I mean, in a big ass room.
Yeah,
So
yeah, he actually yes, you must be talking about the event he did for the election because he
well,
had a
he had
huge.
Trump on.
Oh, 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 in his normal studio, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Or
he had him
or the
on.
or the live
I,
election
I
coverage thing that he did.
maybe let me look at this. Patrick Bet David.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the dude. So go look at this. There's a short out there that he talks about the process of. It's a YouTube short. The process of the interview and the secrecy of having Trump come in. In that video, you will see his studio,
Mm.
and that's where I was like, well, this dude's not just a small operation. This looks like mainstream media operation. So and that was the
Right,
point I was trying to make.
yeah, and the other, podcast to watch too is the All In podcast. That show isn't shy to stray into politics, but they kinda have both sides covered. So,
Yeah.
it's an interesting program.
So again, we weren't talking about politics. We're talking about podcasting and the effect it has had in politics.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so please, understand
Yeah.
anything that
I think
rises
people
the
are a little
boat.
hypersensitive to talking about anything related to podcasting. The problem is that, or politics. The only problem is that politics has infiltrated itself into everything. So
Yeah.
you could make the case talking about anything is tangential to talking about politics.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Chad F, thanks for that. And yeah, everyone will say. And Alessandro says, hey guys, remember your CES 2008 video? Yes, I'm not going to CES this year. First time in 18
Oh, you're
years or
not.
something.
Oh, that's
Nope.
right. Yeah.
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 So, all right, everyone. Thanks. We'll see you back. Well, Rob, it'll be Thanksgiving for me. Next
I,
show. Are you good with skipping next week?
yeah, I'm all right with that.
All right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Awesome. So we'll be back with you guys in 2 weeks. Or Rob, if he
Yeah.
decides to do something on his own, he can.
Yeah, in December or something like that, right?
Yeah. So it
I think
would
I think it's the 4th.
be. Let me look here. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, it'll be a good time because I can talk about my new hires start next week. So
Mhm.
should be. I might have a update on how that progress went. But
Okay.
okay.
All right.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.